Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Ronni Robinson. She's a certified eating disorder recovery coach, author of the Out of the Pantry, and three-time Ironman. She reclaimed her body and her life after her journey with this particular issue with the food disorder. So we'll learn from her why diets fail, how childhood beliefs shape our relationship with food, and what real recovery looks like. Welcome to the show, Ronni.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Ronni. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about eating disorder. We'll talk about how one can break free from binge eating. So we'll talk about all this. But before that, let's learn a bit about your background, your journey, your story, so that people know who they are listening to.
Okay, sure. So I started, unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize I was a binge eater until the benefit of therapy when I was almost 40. But it started when I was about 9, and my mother, my job was on every Friday. My mother would be at work. She would go to the market and come home with all the packages of food. And my job was to unload the packages and put it on the table, and then my mother would put them away. And I would always make note of the fact that she brought in some kind of cookies. And, you know, I put it away, everything, you know, this was happening for months. And then one time the following day, I went to eat the cookies and they weren't there. And I searched around. I thought it was kind of odd. And this happened like week after week. My mother never said anything to me about it. I know they came home from the market because I unloaded them from the package, and then they would disappear. Finally, I got the nerve up to ask my mother where the cookies went, and she had her nose in a book, which she normally did, and just sort of, you know, shrugged her shoulders and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." So it wasn't too soon after that I would take my allowance money, and we lived around the corner from a large market, and I would go to the market and buy a bunch of candy bars. I would buy a container of ice cream. I would buy cookies, any kind of snack food. I would bring them back home. I was home in the house alone very often because both my parents worked full time. And yeah, I would eat the junk food while nobody could see me, and I would hide the wrappers in the trash can. And yeah, this just kept going on and on, even through, you know, through school, through college. And basically I was obsessed with food 24/7. Food was my whole world. I ate huge amounts of food in a short period of time. I ate way beyond fullness and discomfort. I had this feeling in the midst of it that I was out of control. It was like I just had one singular focus. I had one compulsion, and that was just to get as much food in my mouth as possible. And I did this all in secret, all in isolation. I would never let anybody see how much I was eating because it was, you know, really embarrassing. And, you know, after a binge, I would be so disgusted with myself. I would say to myself, "What's wrong with you? And why can't you be like everybody else?" And, basically, you know, you're broken. And something is wrong with you. And I would promise that I would do better the next day. And then inevitably the next day would come and it was the same cycle. And I would have times where I was really restricting, being quote unquote good and not eating any junk, but inevitably that restriction and deprivation led right back to the binge eating. And this behavior was what I did for about 30 years until I learned when I was just shy of 40 that I used to think I had a sweet tooth, but this was actually binge eating disorder or, compulsive overeating. At which point I learned that there's help for this and that I can recover and that I can, change my life so that I'm not obsessed with food 24/7 anymore.
Absolutely, absolutely, Ronnie. Thank you for that. Now, to understand it better, you see, a lot of people love food and they have got the appetite also, they have got the metabolism also. Some people have got appetite or whatever it is, but may not have the, metabolism and they gain weight faster. Whatever it is, I don't know whether I've understood it very clearly. This view you will be able to say. But when does eating out of because you love food become a binge eating disorder? How should a common person understand this?
Yeah, there's definitely a big difference between somebody who maybe they put on Netflix and ate a half a bag of pretzels or went through something and they ate a lot because they were just watching the movie and they weren't really paying attention and they just kept eating. And that happens once in a while. And they might feel a little full and be like, oh boy, I really ate a lot there. And it's totally no big deal. It was just a one-off. It happened one time. It's not this all-consuming thought that you have. There's plenty of people, as you were saying, who definitely love food. And that is totally fine. And, normal and nothing wrong with that. Food is nourishment, but it's also, meant to be enjoyed. The difference is the obsession with it and all the planning of what am I going to eat? Where am I going to get it? How am I going to eat it with nobody seeing me? Where am I going to put the trash so that nobody sees it? It's this whole plotting and scheming. And as I said, this obsession where, you're eating one meal and you're already thinking about what snacks you're going to eat. You're going to think about what another meal is or what am I going to, what I'm really going to get myself this on the weekend. And it's just really eating large quantities of food in a short time, eating quickly. And like I said, feeling out of control and that this happens day after day.
Absolutely, absolutely. So binge eating, and then there are other eating disorders. Now, how does one differentiate between those?
Sure. There are a bunch of them, as you said. There's the complete other end of the spectrum is anorexia, where you're very restrictive and you have an intense fear of gaining weight and you barely eat all day. You're on a very, very restrictive, I don't want to call it like you're not on a diet, but the way that you eat is very low in calorie. Somebody who has bulimia binges and then purges. They get rid of the food by laxatives or, sorry to be gross, vomiting, or they over-exercise. So that's binging, but then feeling like they have to get rid of it. That's purging. And there's some other ones like orthorexia and there's ARFID, but the three main ones are the anorexia, bulimia, and the binge eating. And I feel pretty certain, to the best of my knowledge, that binge eating is the most prevalent one that so many people struggle with.
Absolutely. So how do I realize that, I am having this binge eating disorder? How did you come to know? And then how did you start working towards it?
Yeah, I had a very specific evening where my small children were in bed and my husband was out. And I heard on the, unlike social media that we have now, where everything is on your phone and your face is in your phone all the time, I heard on television the word compulsive overeater. And for whatever reason, that stuck in my brain. I could have heard those terms some other time and it didn't stick with me, but for whatever reason in the universe, this time it stuck and made me go, I wonder what that is, or, however it was described sounded, it resonated with me. Excuse me. So I went and Googled and I came to Overeaters Anonymous. And it said, are you one of us? Do you do this with food? Do you do that with food? Do you feel this way? Do you think that way? And I was, checking all the boxes. Yes, 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 yes. And I just couldn't believe it. I was shocked. And I came to learn through all, I kind of went down the rabbit hole and started, researching about compulsive overeating and binge eating and really saw myself there. And that's what I was doing for the past 30 years of my life. And I came to learn that this was actually what I thought was what I used to call my sweet tooth was actually a thing. This was an eating disorder. This was binge eating, and that other people did this. And it wasn't just me who did that. Having binge eating disorder is really isolating and it's really shameful. People usually suffer through it silently on their own, just because you feel mortified if anybody knew what you were doing. Anyway, so I did all this research and I learned that the binge eating disorder, you can recover from it. And I started, I took the suggestions that I found on the internet was, finding a good therapist. I happen to, so that's what kind of most people do. I also started going to those Overeaters Anonymous meetings. I started a anonymous blog, Confessions of a Compulsive Overeater, where I found community there. I found community in OA. And I also started reading books by other people who, who lived this same struggle and went on the recovery journey as well to find hope. And I was going to say, just to tag on to that, that's one of and this might be another question, so I apologize if I'm jumping ahead. That was one of the reasons that I wrote my book and became certified to be a coach, was because I just really wanted to pay that recovery forward. I know how really, really difficult it is to live in that world of, abusing your body, and, it's like an abuse of your mind. And it's just a really difficult way to live. And I wanted to show other people who were struggling that they weren't alone, and that there is a path to recovery, and that you can actually reclaim your life and live in the present and not be, thinking about food all the time. So, me writing the book and becoming the coach just really helped me to, I felt it became my passion, it was my passion. It was I was put here for a reason. And my reason is to help others who are also struggling with binge eating.
Absolutely, Ronnie. So, is it necessary that binge eating has to lead to a weight gain or becoming overweight? Then only you will know. Or if your metabolism is good and you are, eating a bit more is fine, will that still be binge eating? How does that work? Can it be like that a binge eater is not gaining weight at all and still it will be a problem in any way?
I feel like that is less likely to happen. There are people who maybe, binge eat only on the weekends, right? They try to be good all week and then binge on the weekends, which is, a way of disordered eating also. It's restricting and then binging, restricting and then binging. So I believe there are people who, and also maybe they also exercise, not in a compulsive over exercising kind of way. I think that they may be able to maintain their weight, but more than likely it's going to be a weight gain situation. And, as you were saying, maybe somebody who has a really fast metabolism can get away with that for a little while. I feel maybe when you're younger, you can do that. If you're doing that maybe in your 20s, your metabolism is still going, but as you get older, the metabolism slows down, and that's not going to be helping you out anymore.
Absolutely, Ronnie. You talked about your childhood and the way it started there, but in terms of childhood beliefs, and you talk about how these impact adult eating behaviors. How does that work? Means anything that happens in the childhood, suddenly in adulthood you remember that and you start eating more. Is that the way that works?
That's a great question. So when you are a small child, your parents are more than likely the main influence on your life. There might also be, grandparents or aunts and uncles. But when you're a child, a lot of children go through some sort of traumatic experience, and it doesn't have to be a really horrible trauma. It can be something that your parents, one of your parents isn't emotionally available for you. Your emotions are ignored. Your feelings are ignored. You might be in a house where your parents fight. You might be in a house where your sibling is the favored child and you're not the favored child. You might be in a house where your mother, looks in the mirror and says, my behind is fat, or I hate my stomach's too big. There are so many different situations where you either see these repetitive negative behaviors, and you, as a small child, internalize messages about yourself. If your home isn't nurturing, or your home isn't, there's no emotional availability or support or connection, as a child, you might feel, and this is often the case really with anybody who has any kind of addiction, whether it's the binge eating, alcohol, drugs, gambling, any addiction, is that a lot of it stems from not feeling seen or heard or acknowledged when you were a child. And the inner messages that you internalize, are that I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. And as a child, you can't process that, but these are the messages that you get. These are your childhood beliefs about yourself. And, in that same vein, if you see your mom always talk, she's always on a diet all the time and talks about it. She looks in the mirror when, very often, and like I said, my behind is so big, or I hate my stomach or something. You internalize that I'm supposed to look a certain way, and I'm not good enough if I, look this way. This is a better way to look, to appear. And yeah, you carry all these childhood beliefs into your adulthood. And that is one of the things that has you turning to food for any kind of emotion that you're feeling, or you're just always trying to fill a void, right? There was just that love, that, again, the nurturing, the emotional support, and so forth. You're trying to, you use food to try to fill that void or try to numb. And it isn't until you work through that with a coach like me or a therapist, and understand all of what happened and what your role in all of it was, and helping you to heal from that. It's really hard to recover on your own without, having to go there. and to really talk to somebody about what happened so that you can, understand your childhood better and have a place for it in your life, so that it doesn't, it felt like it controlled you for, years, and for you to get to the point where that, that these childhood beliefs, these limiting beliefs don't, they lose their power, and you step into your own power, where food isn't the answer for anything, and it is not, it's not, love in the way that you need it, and to find a more present way to live and be with your family and your friends and get fulfillment that way.
Right, Ronnie. So, what is this connection between binge eating and midlife? Especially, you work with a lot of women. So, is it only with women, or is it also with men? Also, help us understand from that point. Even several men, you will find every midnight, somewhere between 11 to 2 o'clock, found near the fridge, looking very cautiously around, eat very quickly, and disappear back into the bedroom from wherever it is. So, how do you explain that connection between midlife and women, as well as how does it impact men also?
Yeah, you make a great observation. There are definitely men who are secret binge eaters. I mean, one time into, at midnight to go down for a snack is one thing, but to, really, really keep going and to eat and eat and eat, way beyond fullness, and to feel out of control. I'm sure I know there are men who feel that way. One of the big differences is that men don't often ask for help. Men don't think they have a problem. Men think, I can handle this, I got this. Where a woman is more apt to ask for help. And specifically, and also I have had clients who are males, but they are predominantly women. And though the age range, I've had clients from age 16 to age 72. But that midlife time is often a time where women's, there's, menopause, and, the whole time your hormones are going crazy and your body shifts and changes in ways that you're not used to, where you really have to, you're almost like forced to examine things in your life. Like, what is going on? How do I change this, this crazy weight gain that I'm having because of my hormones? And, let me really take a look at things. And they're more open to just being more aware of what they're doing, and, saying, I really do have an issue with food, and I really need help for this. I don't want to continue living my life like this anymore. And I find also that in midlife, people, sometimes kind of shift in a way, maybe their kids are finally out of the house, and there's like more time to focus on them and what's going on with them and taking care of their own health, for example.
Absolutely. So, after one gets, cured, so-called, if I can use that word, how does it feel like? Means you don't feel like eating, or you feel like eating, but you look at eating differently. How does that work, Ronnie?
Do you mean for me, or in general for people?
Anyone who has recovered, who feels or is being told that you have recovered from this.
Yeah, the huge difference is learning that food is fuel for your body to do the things you want your body to do, whether it's to go to work, to go exercise, that kind of thing. It's for nourishment, it's also for your brain and your organs. And food is definitely meant to be enjoyed. But the difference is somebody who's, in recovered, however people want to, kind of label that. It's a personal thing. It's just not having that obsession anymore, that you can go through your day and not be thinking about your, upcoming snacks and upcoming meals. You are just so much more present in your life. I know that when I know a lot of my clients, we would go on an outing to an event or, a party, a wedding or something. And your focus, normally people go to those things and they are looking forward to being with their friends and being with their family, hanging out and having a good time. Somebody who's a binge eater is thinking about the food and what's going to be there and how am I going to eat it with nobody seeing, eating excessive amounts with nobody seeing me. How am I going to do that? So the difference is being more present, and actually in a situation like that, you really are there now to hang out with your friends and enjoy the event, and to meet people and to, experience things. Your sole focus in life isn't on the food anymore, because just you've had a mindset shift, through, like I said, through therapy or coaching, just thinking of food in a different way. And, along with the healing of the inner child, those things come together and you find that you don't need food to find fulfillment anymore or to numb out anymore.
Absolutely, Ronnie. Now let's learn a bit from your book, your memoir, Out of the Pantry, A Disordered Eating Journey. Who is this book for, Ronnie?
Wow. This book is for anybody who thinks that they might be a binge eater or compulsive overeater, or maybe even thinks of, a friend or family member is one. It's for people to, I was very vulnerable and very open and honest in the book with all my crazy thoughts and behaviors around food. And I share that all in the book. And it's for, I know I wouldn't want anybody to resonate with what I went through, but unfortunately, so many people do. So to read my book and to see that they're not alone, and, to read my thoughts and behaviors and say, oh my gosh, you wrote this about me. This could have been my life. This is exactly what I do as well. And, the journey through the book is to my recovery. And to see that that's possible and that your life really can change. It's really like a transformation. So it's, like I said, it's for paying forward my recovery. I want people to know if they're binge eating, that they're not alone, and that there's help and you really can recover from it.
Absolutely. You can really recover from it. There is so much to learn about all this from you, Ronnie, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you and also become your client. What's the best way for them to do so?
Sure, and thanks for asking that. My website is my first and last name, www.ronniRobinson.com, so that you could, learn a little bit about more about my program. I have a 15-week program to get to a point of having pretty solid footing in recovery. They could also shoot me an email. My email address is RR, my initials, recoverycoach@gmail.com. Also, if you're an Instagram person, my handle is at Recover with Ronnie. So there's, I put up information there, and obviously you could always, DM me, and I'm happy to respond.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.